Good evening, and welcome to this last and perhaps the most important session of the day. In my mind, doing medicine is one thing, but understanding a business of medicine is very important. This session is important to me and perhaps nearly everyone who is in this room is because healthcare has seen its changes, the worst ever since the introduction of third-party payments, which was done after Second World War, and inception of Medicare in late 60s. Since the introduction of Obamacare in 2012, not only general public is impacted, but the hospital and physicians are also impacted. So this session is basically designed for you to understand the impact of this new healthcare system on your daily practice. I'm very honored to have my co-moderator, Dr. Vince Bellafino, who is going to kick off the session with first talk, how will Obamacare impact endovascular practice in years to come?
Thank you, Dr. Komar. Good afternoon. And I hope to take about 10 minutes and introduce a topic that takes several hours, but much of this you've heard, and hopefully I can synthesize for you and give you an approach that we're taking here at Advocate Healthcare in Chicago in terms of how we're beginning to tackle this world of population health. Nothing to disclose. So Advocate Healthcare, 2 seconds on that. You know, we're now a 12-hospital system with 1,400 fully integrated physicians, 4,300 aligned physicians in a full clinically integrated practice, and beginning to tackle a large swath of population health. We have now, we'll talk about it a bit, the largest ACO in the United States at about 600,000 lives, soon to be about 700,000. You know, the focus of Advocate has been, this is their mission value statement, but I point out to you the last box, which is Advocate Care, and that is coordinated care as we start to now think about how to care for, instead of individuals, but to handle an aliquot of patients as we move forward. You know, population health management has been around a long time. Back in the 80s, we began this project doing partial capitation. At Advocate, we were part of this in the PHO. We had Dreyer Medical Group doing their own insurance product, the Michael Reese Health Plan, and Advocate Physician Partners. That entire group has been working on risk contracts for many years. And now, as I said, we've moved to this large clinically integrated product. We looked about 5 years ago and said, you know, what was the business model of how could we be successful? How could we earn revenue as providers? And that it was simply maximize the unit reimbursement for each thing we did, or increase the number of units we delivered, or increase the volume, or finally take financial risk for managing a population, attempting to lower costs and serving a greater population of patients. And we've continued to migrate in that last direction. I'll share some of that with you. And you know, population health it's a new term. Who knew? None of us learned about that in training and medical school or residency, and so we're all trying to figure out what does it mean. You know, one of the definitions is, you know, it's coordinated care of patients and how we deliver to a population to improve outcomes and lower costs. Not bad goals, but you know, how do we change the way we deliver this? And this is our Advocate Care. This is our triple aim. It's improving the patient experience, improving outcomes while reducing costs. So we've taken right off the playbook of the definition. This is a little hard to read, but I walk you through it, starting at the bottom of the evolution of contracting over the course of the last 15 years. We were all in fee-for-service medicine, and then that began to change as DRGs came along, and they defined how much they were going to pay us for a single diagnosis, and then pay for value. So we began looking at pay for performance in small areas. Now, Medicare has been looking at bundled payments now for the last 8 to 10 years, and now we're looking at patient-centered medical home as we try to figure out, should the primary care physician again be in charge of the delivery system. But where it's going is at the top. It's going to be around shared savings as we look to figure out how can we create a margin on the care we deliver. And it'll be, today we're only in upside risk contracts. Tomorrow there'll obviously be contracts that have both upside and downside risk, and then eventually we'll all be in global risk contracts. And so the marketplace is changing, and you've all seen this slide before, the rising costs of healthcare, and this is what we struggle with in the country, is that they're concerned about this rising cost curve. And the blue is the United States, and you see that over the age of 65, we have excessive costs. And we also know that part of this problem is that in many of the countries in Europe, care stops in the mid-60s, and that we don't dialyze patients, we don't take care of advanced care problems, and they're comfortable with taking those patients to palliation or hospice, where here, every 88-year-old with a bad valve needs an aortic valve replacement. And so it's a different mindset entirely. This is the interesting evolution, and I share with you the local market here. And the left bars are 2009, and that is 50% market share for Blue Cross. But I want to show you the one on the top, number 13%, is PHCS. It's a small insurance company that did discounted fee for services. They basically paid you a discounted rate off your charges, which was awesome. Everybody loved that. And they kept coming to town saying, we can't afford this anymore, we can't afford it. Well, they can't, because they're basically out of business. They're now at 1% here 5 years later, and the world of discounted contracts is over. Medicare Advantage is the new horizon. As we look at this, we've got about 1 million people in Chicago, growing quickly. It used to be less than 10% of the eligible population. Now it's about 20%. If you look at it across all the counties here in northern Illinois, you look at the penetration, but Illinois is still at just over 20%, which is about 50% less than the rest of the country. So we're expecting to see that really grow. ACE is the new world as Illinois Medicaid has come of age. Advocate's a significant player in there and is pretty much all in with that. The state of Illinois mandated that 50% of the Medicaid population needs to be in one of these 3 managed care options, and that fee-for-service care will end January 1st. So this is a world of managed medicine for sure. The ACA, 2 more minutes on that, this is an insurance law for the most part, and that's really where it began and where its biggest impact is. And that if you look at this, that it's really about standardizing it, standardizing eligibility, standardizing the products available, and then develop these metal tiers. I'll show you those. The pricing is based on 4 factors. It's age, gender, tobacco, and geography. So nothing fancy. They cover all pre-existing conditions, and there's a standard way to purchase it online, as you know. Here's where it's all at. The platinum is the best plan, where it's only about 10% out of pocket for the patient, and it goes down to 70-30 for silver, 60-40 for bronze. And unfortunately, the dominant place is in those lower plans. Here 80% plus of the plans are in the silver and bronze, and that's what we're concerned about, because these patients are not going to be able to pay these copays, either to the hospital or the clinicians that are caring for them. Public exchanges is a whole nother world, and Blue Cross entered this area with Blue Choice, very low price product, basically narrow network, because most of the big networks said, no, thank you, we're not going to go down to 100% of Medicare, and that's really where this was. And yet they got 200,000 lives and moved a fairly big piece of the market. The private thing is here to stay. Walgreens, Sears are moving their employees. They basically made a direct contribution to each of those employees and said, go out and buy your own insurance on the marketplace, and they're all gravitating to low-cost plans. And so this is the most likely biggest disruption. If this private thing really takes off the way they're predicting over the next 2 or 3 years, 40 million could be participating. 1 out of every 3 businesses could participate. And of all the ACA issues, this is the most likely thing to create the most disruption. So as we finish here, just to look at the shift. So this is Advocate's volume. 2010, 82% was fee-for-service in 2010. Here's 2015, it's 32%, and by 2020, 15% will be fee-for-service, 35% will be global cap, 15% partial cap, half of it capitated medicine. This is here to stay. So this slide didn't come up, but it was a slide I got from my friends at CMS, and their new three things are smarter, healthier, and cheaper. And basically that's what they're talking about, and that's the care we're going to deliver. So, I'm sorry, here it is: better, smarter, healthier. So practice better medicine, be smarter what we deliver, and keep the patients healthy, and that's the way we're going to lower costs. So at Advocate, this is our focus. These are the four things that we're paying attention to. It is about patient safety first and foremost. That's going to drive the conversation, but we're very aware of our quality. We're very tough on measuring quality parameters so that we're very aware of our outcomes at every level. But it is about service. It is about service and access, and if we don't provide the right service, it's not there. And what we're going to try to do is to begin to do it in a more cost-effective environment. Let me stop there and then ask Dr. Kumar to come up and give the next talk. Dr. Kumar, as you know, is a vascular surgeon, retired from Mississippi, and is here. And we actually both have the same name. We're both called Vinny, and I'm not sure we're related, but at least that's what my family called me. And at any rate, so he's going to talk about the workload in the current healthcare environment. Dr. Kumar.
He does look like my older brother, doesn't he? So when we look at the healthcare, one of the questions was that by introduction of Obamacare and new laws by Medicare and ACOs, is it possible that we can cut the workload in current healthcare atmosphere? And this is a very important part. So let's just look at what physicians' workload entails around. We have office, we have hospital, we have emergencies, call schedule, administrative work, hospital meeting, and CMEs. Now, that's a huge number to deal with one single physician. And then if you look at the national data, the number of patients an average physician sees, 30% of them see 30 to 40 patients a week. And I don't know where this data is coming from, because only 2% are seeing 60 to 65 patients per week. But when I look at my practice, I see about 60 to 75 patients per week. My per day is about 25 patients, and I'm sure a busy cardiology and busy vascular surgery practice are seeing these number of patients. So what is changing here? The question was asked on the internet, and this is from Yahoo, that how many hours a doctor works? And the famous Dr. Oz's answer was 105 hours a week, which by itself, in essence, is 25 hours more than an average person working in the entire United States. But I didn't stop there, because I didn't believe Dr. Oz. I don't believe his show. I don't believe what he says. So let's look at JAMA. Is there objective data about it? JAMA published this article. UC Davis actually did this research and published on July 11, 2011. And they looked at a major sample of over 6,000 physicians. Study was done between 2004 and 2005. All 41 specialties participated in this. And they also identified the minimum workload of 26 weeks. And data is astonishing. Mean annual workload is somewhere between 2,500 to 2,524 hours for average physician. But then they break it down. And let's look at this very carefully. It's a very busy slide. And they made family practice 0 as 2,524. But you look on the top of the list, vascular surgery leads the list by over 1,300 hours a year, more than any other specialty in the world. Nobody knew this. And then you look at these simple specialties, they're below the 0 level, and then some specialties are above the 0 level. So we already maximize when it comes down to type of the amount of workload we have. So what does Obamacare brings to us? Vince has already talked about what impact is on the hospitals, but what is impact on the physician? We look at more documentation. Not more documentation, we want proper documentation, because that helps the hospital and us with payments. It avoids audits. We are learning ICD-10 codes, which are coming next year, compliance with Medicare mandate, ACO balance, meetings and more meetings, and most important is timely maintenance of record. Because I get the first call at 5 o'clock in the morning when they say, Dr. Kumar, we don't have history and physical on the chart. And those nurses who are here, they know what they're doing. They want my H&P at 6:30 in the morning on the chart, because if I don't do it, they won't take the patient back. So it is adding to my workload. Electronic medical record is office-based. Then if you cover more than one hospital, they have two different electronic medical records, which you have to learn and be very precise. They require medical mandate of timely completion, ACO requirement, and most important, patient satisfaction. And oftentimes I think the watch should change, because surgical suit delays, follow-up and paperwork, timely discharge, all are adding up. And what is more important in recent days is it used to take me 10 minutes to discharge an outpatient, now it's taking me 30 minutes. So I think I'm going to talk to NASA scientists so they can create a clock. Now it goes from 24 to 25 hours. So my day, in essence, just like anybody else's day, begins with medical records and ends with medical records. I get up at 5 o'clock and does my routine chores, goes down, rounds on sick patients, 7:25 run to the OR, 7:30 day starts, cases, emergencies, patients, family meeting, nursing call, discharge, treatment to the pharmacy, final rounds, and finish with medical record. By the time I reach home, my wife is not happy with me. So this is an article for Medical Economics of this year. Top 10 challenges facing physician in 2014 and 15. And if you can go through the entire list, 3 of them are extremely important, pointed out by Jeffrey Benefix. He says time, putting control back in the hands of physician, and work-life balance is going to become extremely important as Obamacare or new healthcare system progresses, because it's a completely different ballgame since the time I started practicing in 1985. It's completely different. I feel I'm lost many days when I'm going through the hospital meeting because I don't understand. So what is it doing? You look at the pressure, and this is a same article in economics, which is the doctor is saying, I'm so burnt out from complying with regulation, adapting to new technology, which is less reliable, juggling an account receivable, checking account and paying bill, finding myself coming home late and late, and going to the office early and early. And still, the clock is not hitting 25. I would like to have a better work-life balance, but without an income, it is hard to balance. Because when it's all said and done, regardless of how much we are devoted to medical practice, the bottom line, we need to make a living. And if we can't make a living after 17 years of going to medical school, we are doing definitely something wrong. So what can we do? I looked around. I really could not find much on the literature that anybody has ever talked about. Can we modify our lifestyle or modify our practice to achieve this goal that we can cut our workload? So this is what, in a nutshell, what we can need. Being a physician, that's all I know. So change the way we practice medicine. Let's look at avoid being a solo practitioner, because too expensive, it's got a very high workload, too much administrative work, and oftentimes it's very difficult to find somebody to do cross-coverage for you. But if you still want to do that, you should hire a partner, hire a PA or nurse practitioner, hire qualified office manager, outsource the billing and collection, good quality electronic medical software which can generate your documents without making much effort. Cut down the number of patients in the office, because you can push some of these patients to nurse practitioner or your PA. They can follow up these patients for you. Pick a number for your procedure. That's our major problem. We book up 8 or 9 cases in a day, and then 10 o'clock in the night you're coming home and there's another emergency. No reason. Go ahead and pick a shorter number so that you have a slot for emergency, yet these patients are, elective patients are there to stay for tomorrow. And take half a day week off for recreation. What can we do if you're in a group practice? About the same, but pressure is to generate more income. When you're in a group practice, they're going to push you to generate more and more. You have a loss of autonomy and more control of administrator and senior partner. But advantages are patient base, fixed income from day one, benefits, no administrative work, set up ACO Medicare mandate already present in the hospital or a multi-specialty group, available EMR, you don't have to come out with $25,000. You already have a built-in coverage, and well-set office with trained personnel, because most practices are not offering the PA or nurse practitioners. And time off for CME and vacation, and obviously less on call. So when I look back at it, in conclusion, is it possible to reduce the workload? In the world of great David Letterman, and now me, accept a group practice with good call coverage. Accept a hospital-based job. Hire a nurse practitioner or PA. Reduce number of new patients in the office. Let nurse practitioner do the follow-up. Teach PA and nurse practitioner to complete history and physical and office charts. That cuts down significant amount of workload. Restrict number of procedures in a cath lab or the OR. Learn to follow ACA guidelines. Avoid solo practice. And number one on my list, plan your day and stick to it. Thank you.
The next talk is one of my colleagues and partners, Cameron Harry, who is a coronary and peripheral interventionalist trained at the Cleveland Clinic, and he's here to talk about that decision of private practice versus hospital employment.
So I've been asked to talk about the very simple task in about 5 minutes of making the decision private practice versus hospital employment. I will do my best. Fortunately, some of it has already been covered very nicely by Dr. Kumar. So let's talk about what is the definition of hospital employment. There are so many different models out there that anyone practicing in a same local area or all across the country have different idea of what does it mean to be employed as a physician by another entity. So there are different models, and some of the most common models are these: a hospital-employed single specialty practice, a hospital-employed multi-specialty group, a larger healthcare organization such as that I'm involved with, which is Advocate Healthcare, that has two separate entities. One is the Advocate Medical Group, which is the physician-based group, and then the other Advocate Healthcare System, which is more a hospital-oriented endeavor. And if you're involved in that type of employment agreement, then you might not be negotiating directly with your hospital. You may be negotiating with the higher levels above, the physician-owned group and the hospital-owned group at the higher levels of the corporation. There are sole outpatient clinics that can employ physicians, and of course there are university and academic programs, and government agencies such as federally the VA systems, and local municipalities, county hospitals, and the like. So we're in a kind of a topsy-turvy world right now, and for the past 5 to 10 years we've seen this freight train coming down the road. And as Dr. Buffalino mentioned, we still don't know exactly where things are going, and we don't know how ACA is going to impact us completely. But what we try to do is control our own destiny, or else we know for sure someone else will. But the problem is that we don't have control over our own destiny. We can only hope to modify our road. So primarily due to economic forces, we have to understand that the marketplace is consolidating all around us. So as much as we want to ignore this fact, there is no way around it. It is happening, and we as vascular specialists and cardiologists, we know this all too well, because this is probably the most accelerated group of incorporating and integrating physicians currently in the United States. So that seems like a heck of a lot of pressure. This is a slide from what is thought to be the first political editorial cartoon in the Americas. This was by Benjamin Franklin in the Pennsylvania Gazette about 20 years before the American Revolution. Join or die, encouraging the American colonies to unify, or else there would be a quick demise of the new country that they were trying to establish. Well, we have to understand also that some interests with the hospital systems or healthcare systems will never align. But really the key is recognizing each other's priorities and trying to make those priorities overlap as much as possible so that you can come to common ground and achieve common goals. So in understanding priorities, I think it's very important for the physicians themselves to understand and to prioritize their own objectives. And as been mentioned, these are several that are kind of obvious, but very, very much so worth mentioning. And one is one of the premier talks we just heard is the work-life balance and the workload. If that's a priority to you, then maybe a healthcare system that will make this more feasible for you to have a personal life is more important. Of course, we want to optimize our patient outcomes. Of course, our financial interests are of paramount importance, and that's kind of the untold story that we're all thinking about, but not really talking about so much. Do we want to have a secure or more secure source of referrals? As healthcare systems are requiring primary care practice groups, that affects cardiologists and vascular specialists probably more than anything. It's difficult to maintain your private autonomy when the healthcare systems around you are acquiring the medical groups, the primary care medical groups, and they're referring to your competition. Autonomy to control your own operations and entrepreneurial endeavors. For those folks for the past 30 years who have been practicing in private medicine in cardiology and vascular services, these types of things happen at the snap of a hand. We need a new machine, we need new staff, we need whatever we need. We make our own calculation and we get it done. But if you incorporate with a healthcare organization, that goes through the processes that you might not be accustomed to and might take much longer for things that you seem are very obvious needs. Intellectual property ownership is also something that many of us must consider. Minimizing the stress of competition, I alluded to that a little bit earlier. If you're a part of a larger healthcare organization that has colleagues that you're comfortable with, you don't have to worry about the competition for the local productivity. Long-term employment security, what is your horizon? Younger physicians might have a more long-term outlook in their projection for their security than those who are looking at the short-term and maybe even retirement in those quote-unquote sunset years. Are you personally exploring medical or administrative leadership roles in a larger healthcare organization? This might be a key area where you can get yourself integrated with healthcare systems and those kind of political areas or political arenas. Do you want to affiliate yourself with a larger network of experts in your field? For example, this CVC conference is a phenomenal conference where we get to see colleagues not only within our own specialty and how they operate, but also totally different disciplines and how they do things. Potentially integrating with a larger healthcare network will give you that more breadth of exposure and ideas of how to maximize your patient care and new techniques and procedures. Do you want to maximize your research opportunities? Is this something that you were unable to do in a private practice and you think you might have better opportunities to achieve in a larger healthcare system? Of course, in private practice, we see now that, that overhead costs are soaring without much more efficiency. Billing has a high overhead, IT, electronic healthcare records. These are all costs that are deeply impacting physicians. Do you want to protect your own employees? For those of us in private practice or who have been in private practice, we have to consider when we're integrating with larger healthcare systems, are they going to protect your employees? Are they going to be left out in the wind, or are they going to be integrated as well? This also holds true for nurse practitioners, advanced practice nurses, and technical staff. And also, do you want to minimize your non-paper medical work or paper pushing? Maybe you want to relinquish all that to administrators in a healthcare system. Now, you prioritize your own objectives. It's critical to look at things from the perspective of the healthcare administration or your potential employer. You have to look at now what is the paradigm shift. Understanding their priorities. Although their priorities are many, I think these are the ones that are important to understand as a physician when making that decision in healthcare employment. Their priorities, of course, like everyone's reasonable objective, is to maximize the net revenue. That comes in many different forms in many different ways, but one of them is the most obvious kind of lower-lying fruit is to enhance the volumes of elective procedures, reduce hospital length of stays, and improve efficiency. Reduce the variations in practice procedures and standardized delivery of care. And in a conference like this, where we're talking about vascular care delivery, the most obvious ones would be standardized protocols for surgeons and cardiologists and radiologists regarding carotid artery stenting. How do they manage critical limb ischemia? How do they manage wound care? Are these all very divergent processes, or can we create algorithms whereby these employed physicians work together to standardize the delivery of care? How do we improve outcomes by maximizing the government and commercial payer reimbursement? This includes ACOs, ACEs, avoiding penalties that will be coming down the road for readmissions and other fines for not meeting metric outcomes, meeting standards of patient outcomes as measured by local national society and governmental databases, optimizing patient satisfaction scores. Also understand that in healthcare In healthcare reimbursement, patient satisfaction scores can be very variable, and you might want to do some research into what actually goes into patient satisfaction scores and how they are calculated. Maintaining and increased regional market share and stature of the institution overall is another common objective of healthcare institutions, to remain the cream of the crop. So ultimately, what you need to do is understand that this is kind of a Venn diagram. The vision, philosophy, and strategic plan of yourself and your potential employer should be kept in mind, and try to maximize the overlap where there are areas of mutual benefit for you both. Understand that there will be fluidity throughout the process and throughout the years, the duration of your employment or your contract. Some of these things will go in and out of the Venn diagram, and that's why constant communication is critical, not only in the stages of negotiation, but also in the stages beyond that, where you're actually implementing all these algorithms and kind of going with the flow of how healthcare is changing all around you. I should mention some of the varying income models when you're deciding about an employment contract. There are some flat salary models. Salary plus variable calculated bonuses may include RVU productivity, forms of profit sharing from clinical co-management agreements and outcome measures, performance metrics, patient satisfaction scores, knowing whether or not you're going to be responsible for whether your patient takes their medication or how those things can be adjudicated. Will there even be peer review that influences your actual income or your salary? And can penalties be levied in those contracts if you don't meet certain core objectives? And ultimately, I mentioned this a little bit, it depends. Are you kind of the newbie coming out of graduating fellowship or residency? And are you looking at a horizon for as far as the eye can see? You may be more into the security of your job. Or are you looking in those kind of sunset years to just ride off into the sunset? It's estimated that 80% of cardiologists graduating will find employment in an integrated or employed healthcare model, whereas only 25% of those over the age of 60 will be finding employment in a healthcare model within the next 5 years. And physicians, cardiologists I'm speaking specifically of, who are under age 40, roughly 70% of them are already integrated in healthcare models. Hopefully, when all of this stuff settles over the course of the next several years and we weather the storm, we will all be in the kind of phase where we can see the rainbow and are able to practice medicine and take care of patients the way we want to. Thank you.
I guess by the time this session ends, everybody will start hating me. So we have heard from Vince about ACOs, and he is talking to me about the biggest ACO in the nation in Chicago. And many a times when I talk to physicians or fellows, and I want to know what do they know about HMO or ACOs, majority of people have really no answer. They really don't know, and maybe they don't have time to pay any attention to it. So let's just look at what an ACO is and how is it going to help or basically hurt us. So let's look at United States healthcare models. Number one is Healthcare Maintenance Organization, or HMO. PPO is a preferred provider organization, and EPO is exclusive provider organization. And joining this group is ACO, or Accountable Care Organization. So basically, these two are cousins. They are just put to us in a different fashion, and I'll go over with you in details. The major aim of these things are same, cutting the cost. And Accountable Care Organization is basically joining the same bandwagon that they're going to cut the cost at how, and they have a different idea, but more or less same as these two cousins. So how does HMO cut the cost? They have capitation measure where primary care physician is the gatekeeper. There's a set amount of money for every physician. All tests and referrals are based on primary care physician, and there is an incentive for less testing, keeping the patient healthy, and asking for less surgeries and less procedures. Other way of doing is utilization review. I mean, what you get is second opinion, or you call your PPO to identify that you have a critical limb ischemia, you need to do the procedure. They want you to go through A, B, C, D before they can say approval. And the approval is usually done by a nurse or nurse practitioner, and most of the time the answer is no. I have seen 5 o'clock on Thursday evening when they refuse to answer a question and they say, we will get back to you by Monday. Both of these plans, such as ACO also, you have to join and you have to pay administrative fee because that's where you're going to get your patients from. The cost-cutting measured by PPO is slightly different. It's a network of hospitals and doctors combined together, and aim is to keep the patient in the same network. The advantage for the patient is it does not require primary care physician to refer the patient anywhere. Patient can find his own physician, preferably in the same network. So how does the insurance company make the money? They make the money by discounted rates to the hospitals and doctors. And when they put it to the patients, they offer plans that HMO and PPO. And just remember, most HMO and PPO contain same physicians. They pitch it out in a little different fashion. Only thing is in PPO, they have a higher cost out of the pocket, referral is needed, and basically you must leave a referral to see a cardiologist. And if you don't have a referral, you cannot walk to the doctor's office. So what is this change bringing? What is physicians are saying? Because they have to follow HMO guidelines. And since HMO is profit-driven, they basically dictate how to do this cookie-cutting medicine, which if you request longer hospital stay, usually they are denied. And it's a cookbook medicine which you have to practice joining HMO or PPO plans. So if you're really disgusted by those two, smile, because here comes ACO. And what in my books ACO is, it's a Walmart medicine, everything in one place. Cheap price, price match, coupons, and customer satisfaction. How does it work? So let's look at ACO structure. ACO takes the structure from hospital, healthcare organization, insurance company, physician, pharmacy. Nearly everybody designs a central core. And physicians who are self-employed or in a group, they must join ACO to get the benefits. Hospital and central core provide logistics support, follow ACO requirements. They have nurses who will come down and tell you to change your codes so they can better get paid. And intention for all this is incentive money. The data shows this is managed healthcare executive data from there, which said plain physician-sponsored ACO usually do not work. So hospital and physician joint venture are the most successful design you can do because they can produce top ACO measures for success. Number one is clinical outcome, and number two is patient satisfaction. And where I've highlighted, provider satisfaction falls to number 9. So they really don't care what happens to you. What is important is how is the clinical outcome, and did the patient get happy with your presence, or did you smile in the office? The collaborative work amongst the physician, because final product come from physicians. So we are very important part of this ACO. But however, we don't have financial and know-how to produce an ACO. Whereas hospitals have got significant cash in their hand, and they are very capable of creating a structure for ACO. These are number of ACO in the United States, a lot of them. And you can see the dark areas where there's more population, there are more ACOs. And I was surprised not to see Chicago or Illinois on that, because California, Texas, and Florida leads the nation. And all are looking from Tony to get more money, which is going to be difficult to come by. So how does the rise of ACO occur? Well, in 2010, we have only 42 ACOs, and by Q3 of 2013, we have 493 ACO. Nearly everybody is joining the bandwagon. And CMS, when he sees this kind of growth, they know they're going to lose the money, so they have already moved to next ACO model, which will be introduced in 2016 and 2017, where there were 4 different grades of payment from Medicare. So health leaders, this article from Greg Freeman in November 27, 2013, ACO is not really different from HMO model, and I need to read this. Accountable care organizations are fed, not very different from the HMO model, with few bells and whistles, but otherwise the same old incentive to do as little as possible, but find the healthiest patient you can. This is from the Association of Physicians and Surgeons. So how does ACO's cost cutting goes against HMO and PPOs? PCP here is also a gatekeeper whose job is to reduce hospital stay, number of surgeries, redo admission, and establish a healthy patient. HMO on the other side or ACO on the other side, would provide more scrutiny, utilization review, audits, better documentation, joint decision-making, better coding to get maximum reimbursements. And if you don't do, they will punish you by recouping the payment. That would not happen with HMO or PPO. And finally, if you're really an outlier, you'll be removed from ACO. So these are 33 ACO measures which are absolutely required as you progress in your patient care, and ACO scrutiny, in my mind, is definitely tougher than HMO. But out of all these, 8 are extremely important. And as you can see, getting timely care, provider communication, and patient rating of the provider and access to specialists leads this list. So Medicare actually had a pilot program with ACO measures. They created the purpose, they created the benefit, and basically went ahead and created pilot program. There are 32 ACOs involved in the pilot program. And all 32 healthcare system Pioneer program reported improved score. But look it down below. Quality measures said cancer screening and controlling blood pressure were very good, but 18 out of 32 were able to lower the cost only. 2 ACOs lost the money. 7 wanted change. 2 opted out of financial risk. Model didn't work, but it's here. How is the revenue loss in ACO? Look at the hospital, $6.9 million loss. And those who are cardiologists must love this, $258,000 loss because of joining the ACO by avoided readmissions. Medicare says they'll pay you back by cost sharing, but this is only going to happen on the back end. Now, Medicare reported 200 participating ACOs. They said 22 measures, public reporting. CMS released the ACO financial performance. 53 of them reduced the cost out of 200, only 53. They want you to share $300 million for those 53 ACOs. So if you can go to Medicare.gov, you can actually look at your own ACO. And I randomly picked up this name. This is Jackson Purchase Medical Associate PA. Hemoglobin A1C control, they were compliant in 80%. Blood pressure, they're compliant in 0%. And then they lose. You don't fit. All the Medicare says to us that these ACOs are helping, but you look at this curve, you basically realize that 1 or 2 ACOs are making money, the rest of them are staying on a baseline, 0. And if you're not producing and you're not submitting, Medicare is taking away 1 to 2% of your income. That includes hospital and physicians both. This was published recently in New York Times. So in conclusion, ACO is designed to cut the cost, and they will do it, regardless whether you like it or not. Payments are bundled, so in future, specialists are going to get paid less. Design of ACO promotes loss of autonomy. Shared decision-making, which is a tough process in private practice, non-teaching hospital. Performance data and audits create significant harassment for our practice. Shared revenue benefits are only available back end, and who knows whether you're going to get it or not, or you will get audit for that, and failing to perform well, outcome and patient satisfaction will be parameters for removal from ACO. So when you go to see a patient, smile, because that's what is number one. And this ACO is a small gift in a big box. Thank you.
Well, we're going to continue this Vinny and Vinny show, but shift directions for a minute. Today, this next talk is about Medicare and an effort to just focus on, what we know to be the largest payer in the country. They're spending over $500 billion a year to support healthcare in the United States, and why they're as focused as they are around this care. And we know that these 3 big areas are the changes. As I talked about earlier, high deductible plans are growing 20% already in 2014 and climbing. The SGR repeal and Medicare shared savings. But I want to spend most of my time on the SGR repeal. As you know, we've been fighting this fight for now almost 15 years in Washington to get this repealed. I remember when I was in Congressman Pete Stark's office about 5 years ago, and he said, "I can't believe it lasted all this long. We just put it in play for a couple years, and here we are 15 years later still living with the SGR, which was obviously a very flawed formula, but not a lot of talk about what's the new formula. So let's spend a little time on what's it all mean. Here's the bill. These are four of the big areas that were covered in the bill. First is the introduction of two new payment models. First is merit-based incentive payments, MIPS. You'll hear a lot about MIPS. And then secondly is the alternate payment model. Those are going to be the two models that they're going to pay physicians and clinicians for their care. Secondly, they're going to set new targets and higher provider accountability for electronic records. And you'll see a bunch of that throughout this. They're going to demand, obviously, higher performance. The Two-Midnight Rule is coming, although it's been delayed till the fall, and that's basically going to make it so that more patients will be in observation beds than admitted. And you know the difficulties of that is that the cost or that copay goes to the patient, and they have, here you're spending 2 nights in the hospital, assuming you're admitted, but no longer as Medicare shifts the cost back to the patients. And then the last will be a provision around quality, and we're going to talk a little bit the number of measures and the standards that they're going to ask of us in order to deliver health care going forward. So the two models. The first is a transition period, will be 3.5 years where things will stay as is. And then in 2019, the two options will come into play. And option A is you remain in a fee-for-service world with a new value-based formula. Or second, you transition to a risk-based model. So there are going to be obviously better financial incentives tied to those that are willing to go into the risk model. But the bottom line, it's going to be very difficult, except for some specialists, plastics and dermatology, to continue to participate in a fee-for-service world in the next decade. This will go away. So let's talk about it. So the beginning is this year, which is a 0% update till July 1st, and then there will be a 0.5% update in the second half of 2015. Existing payment structure, same fee-for-service model. And then there will be an update each year of about a 0.5% over the course of 16, 17, and 18. And then in 2019, the fee-for-service payments will be held, so that basically that will stop, and providers will be, again, in one of these two models, which is the merit-based incentive payment and the alternate payment plan, and it'll be based on your tolerance for risk. So the merit-based is based on a fee-for-service, but the performance begins in 2019. In other words, they will develop they have a methodology that it's been developed around for doctors, PAs, and nurse practitioners that'll be tied to electronic record meaningful use, the quality physician reporting system, and then value-based modifier, which is basically providing value-based outcomes for patients. And each of these will be measured. Each participant will get a score between 0 and 100. These scores are going to be based on these 4 parameters. One is quality, and they'll emphasize outcome-based measures, and the societies will participate in the development of those measures, but those will be coming forward soon. And then they will be listed annually and updated on a regular basis, so that will evolve. Once we get really good at a measure, obviously those measures will go away, and they will put a more difficult set of measures as they ramp this up, very similar to what's been done so far. 30% will be resource use, how much you spend taking care of an acute myocardial infarction, an episode of critical limb ischemia. They're going to manage that based on how much you spend compared to your associates, compared to the country. Third will be, practice improvement activities. Do you expand access? In other words, are you able to see same-day appointments? Do you have evening hours? Are you going to see folks on the weekend? Do you do population health management? Is there care coordination? Do you do telehealth? And do you engage the beneficiaries? The Medicare beneficiaries are who they're worried about, and those are the patients, and really that's going to drive this. Patient safety will be an important measure and be part of this, and they're going to ask us to participate in these alternate payments. In other words, are you taking some risk? Are you willing to manage a risk population? And then finally will be the computer, how well you're using the EHR, and that's not just you clicked in and put in clear lungs S4 pulses felt. This is going to be how well you documented it, how comprehensive you made your decision making, and your analysis of the testing that you ordered and why you ordered those tests. Those will be all the parameters. You'll be scored, and this will be based on how you get paid. The alternate payment model will be a little different. It'll be based on Medicare shared savings, which is this where you take a population of patients, and if you're able to deliver it at a lower cost, the difference between your cost and what Medicare estimated is the differential, and you get to share those savings with Medicare. And depending on the formula, it could be 80-20, 50-50, or 20-80. So it'll be based on that. They will, beginning in 2019, give you a lump sum annual payment, and then you get this shared opportunity of the surplus. Do you deliver it more cost effectively? Qualified APNs, you know, these alternate payment models will be also around patient-centered medical home. They're still going to give the primary care physicians an opportunity to be the captains of the ship. And so they will expect us to accept risk so that you will care for a patient with critical limb ischemia. They will decide X amount of resources, and then you will, if you do it more cost effectively than the average, you'll have an opportunity to participate in savings. So this is where we're going to have to become creative and begin to think about solutions as we try to figure out how to deliver it. On the cardiology side, where my day job is, we're looking at that today. We're changing the way we do PCI. We're moving to radial cases. We're doing same-day PCI discharges. We're looking at managing syncope that comes to the ER and sending them home for an outpatient workup. Finding the low-risk patients with atrial fibrillation, sending them home on anticoagulants, and managing them as outpatients, lowering length of stay for heart failure, lowering length of stay for acute infarction. Each of these are task forces that we're working on in our system to try to figure out how to more effectively deliver care, still high-quality medicine, but doing it in a more cost-effective delivery mechanism. So, you know, this is where they see it going. In 1920, about 25% of the patients will be in an alternate payment model, in a risk model. By 22, about half and half. And by 23, they think that 3 out of 4 people will be in one of these models, and that traditional fee-for-service medicine will be gone. So here's the comparison of the two sides. The MIPS, again, were the ones I talked about, where you're going to be able to still be independent and still persist for a while, but the aligned APM is lump sum bonus, shared savings, and after 2026, you're going to get 0.75% uptake, 0.75% raise. I like to know what other industries get 0.75% raise. But anyway, value-based payments, you know, so this 5% bonus is not going to be paid in the year you delivered it, but in the following year, it doesn't count as a medical expense. So they're going to try to make it so that you're going to be incentivized that if you do a better job than the average deliverer of care, you're going to be incentivized to improve your outcome. The Medicare shared savings, this next version of ACOs that Dr. Kumar was talking about, there'll be the first track was no downside risk. Then it's up and downside risk, and then the third new track will be 3/4 of the savings will come back to the system delivering it. So they are going to incentivize you that if you do a good job at delivering, you and your hospital system, you will have an opportunity to participate. And so in the next world, we're going to have to, frankly, reinvent ourselves as we look at how we deliver care in this next model. I took these two slides from a presentation by one of the medical directors at Medicare just to tell you how they see it. Again, you remember the ones I told you in that last talk. Better care, smarter spending, healthier people. That's their drive. They see the old world as very producer-focused, incentivized for volume, unsustainable, fragmented. And what they want to see in the new world on the right is patient-centered, incentivized for outcomes, that this is a sustainable model because we can reduce costs, and that it will be coordinated so that they will be working around large accountable care organizations with value-based systems and medical homes in order to deliver health care. Here's the last point to make, and that is that here's their goal. Goal number one is that 30% of Medicare payments are going to be tied to quality through these alternative payment models by the end of 2016, 30%. And 85% of fee-for-service payments will be tied to some quality measure, 85%. So this is their goal. This is where they're going. So if you're not used to measuring, you better get used to measuring, because this is where the whole world is going to end. So in the end, for us, it's about quality reporting will dominate reimbursement in the future. You're likely to be at risk for a payment structure and not just in a fee-for-service model. Electronic records will be central to your delivery, and reporting quality will lead to better reimbursement. These are the 4 principles. This is where it's going. Thank you.
Don't you wonder you should have a McDonald's at home instead of going to Medicare? Our next speaker is my good friend Sonia Noor. She comes to us from Buffalo. She's a vascular surgeon, and she's going to depress you even more. I'm going to talk to you about Sunshine Act.
Thank you, Vinny and Vinny. So, Jaffer, we should have had a cocktail hour today, not yesterday. I'm thinking, I heard a really good talk on the venous side. Dr. Chopra presented on holistic medicine. That's looking like a really good option right about now. No CMS, no FDA. I can sell snake oil. People would probably believe me. I'm Indian. I might have a future. So to add insult to injury, I'm going to talk about the Sunshine Act. Oh, boy. Yeah, I could do that, too. I'll just end right now. These are my disclosures. So the Sunshine Act, what is it about? It's essentially part of the Affordable Care Act for patient protection. And what it wants to do, the philosophy is it wants financial relationships between healthcare providers, biopharmaceuticals, medtech, device industry to be as transparent as possible. So that's what they want to do. They want to know any financial transaction that happens between healthcare providers and industry, we'll just call them industry, needs to be as transparent as possible. Why did it happen? Probably because there was a lot of abuse of relationships between industry and healthcare providers. Let's be honest, that did happen a lot. And I think there's an increasing focus on conflict of interest and ethics with medicine and research, so that shed some light on it. Then there was a lot of media scrutiny, interest by media, which the society we live in, once you see it on the talk shows and you see different people covering it, it becomes a hot topic. And our industry is so perception-based. Our patients come from referral-based, which means our docs look at us at a certain perception, and if our perception isn't if it isn't what we want it to be, if it isn't positive, then our referral base starts to dry up because of a bad article or being associated with certain people or an organization, etc. So it is really important that we keep our public perspective as clean as possible. And part of the Sunshine Act is about that. Increasing government enforcement agency, what happened in Massachusetts and Vermont. And there has to be transparency now, not only in just financial transactions, but it also encompasses clinical data, writing articles, scientific articles, etc. So I'll break it down further and go over it to you. So the goals of the transparency really is meant for patient protection, so that the patients can make a better decision that if your doctor engages in certain activities with a certain company, are they biased or is there a conflict of interest? It obviously discourages conflict of interest, and there's much more awareness now by the institutions, the hospitals, the societies of these physician relations. So they take all this information and it goes into a website, which I'll talk about in a second, and patients, government agencies, institutions, media, regulators, everybody now has this access to this financial relationship that you have with industry. However, what's important is it does not place any restriction on what we're allowed to do as healthcare providers with industry, and I think that's important. All of us have some sort of a financial relationship with industry because we all work 9 to 5. The only time we really have to meet or greet or talk about a new device, certainly in my practice, or learn about something new, is to go away for to a meeting like this, or to go to dinner and have somebody talk to me about it, because it's on my downtime. So we need to have some relationship with industry in order for us to further be more aware, to learn new techniques, etc. The Sunshine Act does not restrict you from doing that. It's simply reporting how much of a financial relationship you have with industry. And so it shouldn't discourage you from having a relationship. It should just make you aware of how much of a financial relationship you have. So what are the requirements? In 2013, it required all companies to track any kind of financial relationship with physicians. All this data was collected from the previous year, and by March 31st, all companies had to put it into the website. The federal government would then post that data, June 30th, from the previous year's data, and you could get a chance to look at it. What kind of financial relationship are we talking about? So any item of value or any payment over the amount of $10 was to be reported, and an aggregate of $100. So if you got a $9.99 something from the company, but you got it 11 times, that would get reported. So a cumulative of $100 over a year. What is included in that laundry list? Any kind of consulting, honoraria, any meals and refreshments. So you went and had coffee and that was over $10, that gets reported. Research and clinical trial related expenditures, educational expense, whether it's a journal, a book, training or education expenses. If you had a happy hour for a colleague who's worked for 40 years, who's now retiring, and a company sponsored part of that, that gets reported. Any kind of charitable donation. The manufacturers must disclose each payment, and I actually got this off the manufacturers as to what they have to put in. So the name, the contact information, your national provider number, the date, the dollar value, the product associated with the interaction. That's why they always say, when we're going to do something with you, what are we going to talk about at the meeting, etc. The type and nature of the payment or the item of value, and if you're going somewhere, the travel expenses or destination. So the requirements are, May 2015, for the first time, the US physicians and teaching hospitals were given access to their own data. They have 45 days to review this data because you can dispute it. It goes back to the manufacturer, who now has 15 days to correct the information. And by June 30th, all this is now published on the website. So we now have 5 days, if you haven't done it already, to go in to the CMS site, which I've put on, basically register yourself as a physician. That will pop up the information that you've had in the past year on financial relationships. If you want to dispute any of that, you go back to the company that it's associated with, and then that now becomes public record that people can view. So let me just back up for a second. So if you haven't done this yet, that's the website. Go CMS /open payments. Register yourself, please, because I think this information is out there. It's in a public record. People can read it. You should know that the information there is correct and is correctly associated with you. My 2 cents. Some hospitals have certain policies about the amount of financial relations you can have with this industry. I would say you should find out what those are so you can be in compliance with it. The payment data, as I said, review your data. It's possible that companies may put your name down inadvertently. It's possible that a rep may be friends with a certain group of docs and their name doesn't show up, but your name shows up multiple times. It's your information associated with your name. So I think the onus is on you to make sure that information is correct. And there have been talk about media sometimes coming by and inquiring about physician relationships, financial relationships. If that is to happen, this happened to a friend of mine in New York, I would say find out what they want to know and cooperate with them. Because if you don't, that's when they think you get defensive. That's when they think there's smoke if there isn't a fire. So to summarize, the transparency measures have been around at a state level, but they now are part of the federal law. It's part of the Sunshine Act. The transparency is designed really for patient protection. So I think if you do it with if you're doing the right thing with the right idea, you should be protected. Patients can be disclosed and said that, I have a financial relationship with a certain company and I do these certain devices. I'm helping to develop whatever to promote science. I think patients will understand that and appreciate that. The stakeholders really should carefully look at the institution's conflict of interest so you're on the right side of the institution and not on the wrong side. And I think industry needs to really be responsible and help us, work concurrently with us with this information that they're providing about us. So on that note, the sun is shining today. Thank you.
I promise you, after this, you won't see me again. So we talked about sunshine. There's another development here. Now that the physician income from Medicare is public knowledge, are we at risk? And have anybody gone and checked on the CMS website? How did they post your income? It's very shocking. Let's look at this. I was getting up in the morning when I saw a Star Telegram which says Medicare data disclosure reveals top paid doctors. Ruling unlocks Medicare payment to individual physician June 3rd, 2013. And it all came from detecting fraud overweighs physician privacy. That's done by Dow Jones Industries, which is a parent organization for Wall Street Journal. Honestly, for years and years, they've been pushing for this. And eventually, they satisfied a judge in Florida to reveal all the information. Because they say on their website, if you go and look at LinkedIn, their managers' pay scales are already revealed. So it should be transparent that every physician's income should be known to the world. But that's not really right? Because I was there in my attorney's office getting my will fixed because I never knew when somebody can shoot me. And she said, how come you guys have an organization of over 800,000 physicians and you let this thing happen? No attorney will ever reveal their pay scale on the internet. So there we are. Now we can't say doctors make 3 cents less than teachers because they know. So healthcare reform shows nearly 4,000 doctors get paid more than $1 million from Medicare in 2012. And it's big words. World knows about it. This is an article from Medscape Business and Medicine. CMS releases provider Medicare data and provider express anger. That's about it. Medicare releases individual physician payment data, and then they say, we have taken a huge step today in making the Medicare program more transparent to public and researcher. And we accept. Wall Street Journal article, new medical data, this is now 2015. Second batch is out. New Medicare data offers more complete picture of $12.4 billion payments given to the physician. But nobody reads this, that Medicare provider penalties incentive detail report says 40% of physicians who did not submit the data get penalized by Medicare by 2%. So what is the consumer and government belief in this? They want wide-scale misuse taken off because there's a significant amount of fraud. 1979 court injunction said physician data should not be revealed. However, in May of 2013, Wall Street Journal, as well as Dow Jones Industries, pushed a judge, and that allowed the data to be revealed. And it says, for consumer, the release of data facilitate comparison amongst the individual physician, help consumer physician deliver the highest quality, detect high-spending physicians, tool for improving care, and facilitate the choice for high-quality, low-care cost, like Toyota Prius. So this is how the average state got paid. And this is in Wall Street Journal. You can see Medicare paid these much amounts of money in different states. Kavita Patel and this group wrote this great article in Commonwealth Fund. And they went through 9 million lines of the Medicare data information. And they looked at 6,000 different codes, $77 billion that is paid to the physicians. And they came to the conclusion where there is a transparency, but there are significant issues. The information did not provide physicians actual profit. They did not differentiate between high-volume physician and low-volume physician. They did not differentiate between a physician has 10 clinics versus a single physician. So obviously, those people who got paid, they became big targets, as you will see. They also identified small group of doctors are big Medicare billers. They also identified Medicare reveals big gap in Illinois hospital pricing. They said some hospitals are charging 3 times, 4 times more than the other hospital. And also, interestingly, we are going backwards. We have to start making house calls because this data shows physician house calls saved Medicare more than $25 million in 2013. I think we all need to know all this. This is the way the medicine is going to go. Tomorrow, if a patient's wound is not healing, you have to go to his house to check it out. They also identified high billers. So there's a doctor named Solomon Melgen, who is well publicized. He received over $20 million. Cardiologist in Ocala, $18 million. New Jersey pathologist, $12.6 million. And Michigan vascular surgeon, $10.1 million. That raised the eyebrow. So next thing is Melgen's name appeared in headline in 2012. Medicare goes and raided his office and identified that he has a Medicare fraud just because he has got 25 different businesses, 25 different clinics, and everything was built on his name. Later on, they attached him to Senator Robert Mendez, and basically, United States Attorney, Miami attorney said Solomon E. Melgen was identified and indicted on 46 count of healthcare fraud. So, yes, you become a target as soon as they come to know how much money you paid. Nothing stops them. Fed target that's Asad Kamar, who is in Ocala, made $18.5 million. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service, federal agency overseas, says he has frauded the Medicare. So they took his license away. Medicare data showed disgraced Michigan oncologist, one of the nation's highest paid physicians. Guess what happened? They raided his office and hold all his payments. So what are the risks? Risk from paying agency, that's number one, which leads to audits, loss of revenue, RAC audits, discipline, drop from Medicare, and loss of license. Since 2001, Medicare reviewed 770,000 provider data, 260,000 practice, their billing number was deactivated. And 17,500 providers, they took their licenses away completely. Dallas Morning Report reports 163 Texas doctors were disciplined, and one of the doctor, because third devotes his practice to controversial therapy that is not covered by Medicare. So remember, if you're putting a stent that is not approved by Medicare, you're subject to audits. CMS also checks with state license agency to find out whether you are in good standing or not, and how are you doing billing. And if your billing is high and your payments are high, you're automatically meant to be audited. No question about it. Risk from referral sources, doctors making more money. Let us not send in patients because we vascular surgeons and cardiologists survive on referrals. When our colleagues see we're making 3 times more than them, they're less inclined to send us the patients because there's a significant jealousy factor. And then performance data is often misleading because in-house peer review, unrelated to procedures and outcome, there's strict scrutiny on behavior patterns of a physician. You cannot speak your mind in public anymore because if you're going to speak, something bad comes out, somebody hears, and he whistle blows on you. Medical board review for your high income that has happened in Texas, and plenty of whistleblowers. Is there a risk from patients? Yes. Obviously, if you know that this much money doctor has made, he has a relationship with Medtronic who paid him $50,000 last year for using Enurex device, and his patient's Enurex has failed, his first step is to walk up to the attorney's office, because my attorney says it's called roll the dice effect. In case of mishap, there's always increase in lawsuits. So in summary, release of physician payment data is incomplete and sends a wrong message to public. It makes all physicians vulnerable to paying agencies such as CMS, insurance companies, hospitals, and referral source, not to mention patients. Thank you.
Coffee served during break must be pretty strong. I see everybody still awake and attentive. It's a good sign. So the title of the talk is, Are Office-Based Procedures Safe? Ready for Prime Time? Disclosures, Medical Director of Vascular Management Associates. We have 3 office-based labs. So the shift towards outpatient, began about approximately 20 years ago with formation of ambulatory surgical services and renal dialysis centers. So it was only inevitable that endovascular procedures would follow this trend and be performed in the outpatient setting. Currently, there's over 450 office-based endovascular centers in the U.S. Operators include vascular surgeons, interventional cardiologists, radiologists, and nephrologists. So what drives this shift? Well, it's convenient for the patient and the physician. It's less costly for the patient, so the overall payments from insurance and Medicare are less to the outpatient than as opposed to being done in the hospital. Less costly for insurance companies, and it increases efficiency. For the physician, there's no travel time to the hospital. You don't have to worry about getting bumped for emergency procedures. Quick turnover time, they're your staff, so usually you're able to do a lot more cases in a shorter period of time, so there's great benefit to that. And for the patients, you want to create a nice, friendly environment, a nice waiting area. Really want to cater to the patients. So this is one of our office-based labs in New Brunswick. This is the waiting area. This is a recovery area, and patients get to pick their own. We give them a menu, and they order their own meals and so forth. And this is after the procedures with the families. You have more time to actually discuss the case and what was done with the patient's family, so you have a more personalized approach than what's done in the hospital. Again, other driving forces for the shift: decline in payments. DRA of 2005 reduced vascular lab reimbursements between 18 and 51%. Medicare started to bundle more and more interventional procedures. As of January 1st, 2005, Medicare approved physicians performing peripheral interventions in an outpatient facility. And you look over here that the physicians' payments have gotten less and less. And if you compare it, let me get to that. In August 2013, there was a big scare with the OBL. CMS proposed a 50% fee cut on non-facility reimbursement. Shortly after, in October 2013, the Outpatient Endovascular and Interventional Society was developed. And when they actually came out, the reimbursement cuts were nowhere near as drastic as what's proposed. So if you could compare on the procedures what would get done in the hospital, the physician component on a FEMPOP revascularization with stent, that's $782. In the office, it's $15,000. So you're able to drive a lot of that procedural, the technical components in the outpatient lab. So we heard a lot about ACOs. So ACO leaders see this as an opportunity to trim costs, increase revenue streams by eliminating redundancy and personnel and resources. More consolidation, centralization, or outsourcing of service such as labs, pharmacies, care coordination services. So they're trying to incorporate this in their models as well. Hospitals, can either, fight it or they could work, with it. So they're also following ACO models, looking to deliver surgical services in a more cost-efficient manner. My hospital actually lease my practice and give me the flexibility of working in an OBL. Accreditation, it's not required but recommended. It's a voluntary process, resource intensive, but validates your brand, help maintains a high quality of operational standards. Given the increased scrutiny that's mentioned, I think it's really important to have the accreditation. And there's different accreditation options. So what procedures are commonly done? As mentioned before, initially it was dialysis access, and now more and more peripheral arterial disease is treated anywhere from claudication to critical limb ischemia, chronic venous insufficiency, endovenous ablations, and deep venous procedures. Other procedures, embolization, coronary angiography. This, again, depends on what state you're in. I'm from New Jersey. We're not allowed to do any coronary angiography in the outpatient lab. Carotid angiography can be performed. Okay, so the other part of the talk is how to keep it safe. Well, before you start doing this, you should have certain crash policies, in place. Relationships with the local hospital to accept and deal with complications. Whether that means putting a vascular surgeon on call when you're doing that procedures, but some sort of relationship should be in place. It shouldn't be your first complication that you're trying to develop that relationship. Obviously, have crash cards, suction. You want to choose your staff wisely, not thriftily, to enhance patient safety. Obviously, everybody in the office should be ACLS certified. Patient selection, patients who are high risk, class 4, you want to avoid. Any anxiety, about the procedure. You don't want to push patients to have it. I recently, had a patient that said that they don't want to be the next Joan Rivers. So, okay, fine. We'll do the patient in the hospital. Morbid obesity with the table, severe contrast allergy. You don't want to have any anaphylactic reactions in your recovery area. So as far as reducing your complications, access and hemostasis is crucial. This is where a large amount of the complications do occur. So you want to take your time to invest in an ultrasound machine, use fluoroscopy-assisted guidance to gain access, to assure you're in the common femoral, to assure you're not too low, not too high. Closure devices are key. Again, you want to increase efficiency. If your staff is holding pressure for a long period of time, that's time wasted. So I try to close most things. Per close is my preference, and for manual hold, sometimes we'll use protamine. Your inventory. You always want to be prepared for a complication, for a bailout, so you want to have covered stents, infusion catheters in case you get thrombosis, you get you shut down flow or so forth, snares in case you lose a wire or something happens like that. You want to have it, handy. What cases to avoid? Iliac occlusions, heavily calcified iliacs. The last thing you want is an iliac perf in an office-based setting. Acute limb ischemia, they're going to require a hospital stay anyway. So we're probably better off doing that in the hospital. So, one thing for me was consistency. I want to be able to treat patients the same way as I would in the hospital. This is showing a heavily calcified popliteal occlusion. So I treat it with orbital atherectomy. And, in the hospital, I would use a Sapera stent, so that's what we have in the office space as well. And you also want to, have this, the latest technology. This is a flow-limiting calcified lesion, and I treat it with orbital atherectomy. And since we offer drug-coated balloons in the hospital, we have drug-coated balloons in the office, and that's the result there. And you could take on, challenging lesions. This is the flush occlusion of the SFA. Was approached, had a good PT, was approached with a pedal axis and crossed from below, and then the wire went straight in the sheath and externalized the wire and finished the procedure from above. So, it's important that we actually publish, data, to show that it's safe. This is an article by a vascular surgery group stating that the future of vascular surgery is in the office. And pretty much what they concluded is that there's a tremendous amount of benefit. Procedures can be done safely, increase in the number of procedures with a significant revenue gain. You're able to control your schedule. And the conclusion was every vascular surgeon should consider doing these procedures in the office. And then they published their actual data, their outcomes in this study over here. And this is showed they've done, a large amount of procedures. And you see the breakdown between venous, aortograms, fistulograms, catheters, and IVC filter placements with a very low complication rate. And reasons for patients being transferred to the hospital are shown over here. And again, access being the large majority, hematoma and thrombosis, and you see downstream the complication rates. So in my experience, we've transferred a handful of patients to the hospital. It was a couple of hematomas, one retroperitoneal hematoma from a high antegrade stick, and then we had one patient with critical limb who was overtly septic, who actually was unresponsive in recovery and had a glucose of 7 and wound up going to the hospital. So overall, very few patients being transferred to the hospital. We have a protocol in place. We have a relationship with a vascular surgeon, and again, that's crucial, you know, before you embark on office-based labs. So, conclusions: many procedures previously performed in the hospital can be safely performed in an office-based setting. They're in prime time and have, as you saw from the cut in reimbursements, have they peaked or which direction we're going? You know, it's a little unclear as far as that goes. I think the longevity will be determined by quality, cost analysis, and reimbursements. While we say, you know, cost is less, you know, if done in the office-based setting, an analysis done showed that the increased use of atherectomy may offset some of those costs. So, you know, again, so I think there'll be more scrutiny, more analysis on the data, and that'll, you know, kind of drive which, you know, direction, you know, how long is this going to go on for. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. That was excellent. That was a fantastic review of a whole new area that people are really looking at. We just opened our first lab at Advocate very, very successfully. So, you know, we're at the end of the time, but, you know, maybe we could take a couple questions. And Dr. Golzar is standing at the mic. Let me just open with a quick question to the panel. So what are you doing in your site that you're able to deliver the care that you used to deliver 5 years ago more cost effectively today without compromising quality? Any comments, thoughts? Mike?
I can tell you that I don't think we're doing anything in the vascular side now that's saving money. We're trying. But on the high-risk Medicare population, we actually did do that Medicare demonstration project and was the only system in the nation to actually reduce cost. And you know what drove that? You'll know the answer to this, but for the group, what drove that was you had a care navigator for every one of those patients. Nothing was allowed to be slipped through the cracks. So the investment in that infrastructure actually did pay off. But I can tell you on the vascular side, we're trying. I just don't think I could show you anything yet.
Yeah. But you're right, care coordination matters, and that investment does turn into real dollars.
Yeah, we are still in the process of doing things, but it's kind of difficult because the complexity of vascular disease. It's not like you have a headache and you give them medication, send them home. These patients are chronic patients and they keep coming back. So like Mike said, you got to have streamlined this system and you have to have a coordinator who can actually manage these patients well. And we are making progress in that direction, but we haven't reached there yet.
Dr. Noor.
I think I'm looking at it a little differently. I remember when I first got into practice, we still did AAAs, endovascular AAAs. They went to the ICU for 4 hours. Some stayed there overnight. They stayed in the hospital at least 2 nights before they went home. Now it's routine practice for them to go to the recovery room. So in 5 or 7 years, I think we've become more efficient. And what led to that efficiency was mandates by the insurance companies that you have to do this. There's less ICU pay. You know, the hospitals wanted to do it. The insurance companies wanted to do it. So when we were put under pressure, we did do it. Now routinely, people, the length of stay for an EVAR is 1 day. They don't go to the ICU unless there's a complication or a problem. And that paved the way for TAVR, for, you know, other complex procedures. So I think there's some merit to them trying to make us more efficient. And I think there are some areas where we have become more efficient.
I think it's about putting our skills to work, you know, and that I think the opportunities are there. It's just that we haven't been pushed in that arena yet. And so now starting to be thoughtful about being creative, wound care. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do better by doing it more cost effectively in another setting. Dr. Golzar.
A couple of points. I wanted to first thank the speakers in the panel for a very provocative and enlightening session. Second thing I wanted to say is if there's one take-home message that the audience can take away from this session is please, please, please go home and check your Medicare CMS reimbursement. And I'll give you an example why. Last year, I looked at mine and I saw $200, $300, $50, $300 from companies I had no idea who they were. So I denied all of them. And you can do that by law. You can appeal it. You can deny every single one. And so they, by law, have to go and research this and get back to you. So I work at one of the hospitals that I work at. We have about 20 cath lab techs, nurses, and sometimes there'll be 2 physicians there. So if a company brings in lunch, $1,000 worth of lunch for your cath lab staff, 2 physicians working there, they're going to put in your name and that other physician's name, even if you didn't have a bite to eat. So know that. That's very important. Go check your numbers.
Good
Listen,
advice.
I got to tell you, this open payments thing is another example of the government gone awry. Nobody disagrees that we should be fully transparent about the relationships we have in the industry. It's the way all of you have gotten to use these incredible technologies. Companies didn't dream this up. A doctor dreamed this up, right?
Absolutely.
People work together with industry to make these things happen. So this ought to continue. The problem is, as you just said, the rules are written in a way to report things that are irrelevant but not clear to the public. That's one example. Here's another example. Let's say you're a site investigator for a multi-center industry-sponsored trial. Your hospital, if you're in a situation like I am, gets every dollar. You don't get a penny of that money. However, the law says that the company, and it was in your slide, has to disclose that money tied to you. So you don't see a penny. Your hospital gets it all, including indirects, things like that. And yet on the report, if you don't look, you could have an $80,000 bill on your name that you didn't see a penny for. And when you charge the company to go back and review it, they'll come back and say, we were just obeying the law.
Unfortunately, again, the pendulum has swung too far, and we all know that for those of us who've been doing this a while, we had 3 drugs when I started and no catheters. And, you know, here we are today with a tremendous set of pharmacology and incredible technology, and it's because of industry. I mean, it's been a great partnership. They brought us a lot, and I think the care we're delivering today is a direct relationship for what they've done. Unfortunately, this has become bastardized in terms of its approach to what was hiding around transparency, unfortunately. One last question, please.
Show me the statute that says that you have to belong to Medicare.
You don't have.
There is no statute.
No, you don't.
have to.
Absolutely not.
So, I mean, I don't belong to it. I opted out 15 years ago.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I don't accept insurance. And a lot of my colleagues don't accept insurance. So we don't have to deal with all of that, which you just showed. And if a lot of people, more and more doctors, especially vascular surgeons, which are much more susceptible to malpractice, when you start cutting away, because you have to have an incentive, you're looking at malpractice. And I know I have family lawyers, and they're gonna make more money. Anybody left, that's gonna be making money. There is no statute that says that you have to belong to Medicare. And once you get out of there, they can't touch you.
Good for you. It's a tough road to hoe because unfortunately lots of us are taking care of Medicare patients and less people are willing to pay. Yeah. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
but when 40% of your practice comes from Medicare, right? Well, I'm in a better position than you guys.
67% payer is Medicare in the United States. 67%.
Yeah, it's a difficult road to hoe for vascular
difficult
medicine,
life.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Why it's not possible.
Thank you for staying late. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.